expectations versus the work that you've actually done. I think that most of us in the industry have great expectations for like where we should be, but then the work that we actually have done is not in alignment with those expectations. So a couple examples of that. We had one agent talk about, whether or not real estate is for her. Well, I think the expectation is to earn a big income, but the output of work, the actual work done, has never in the 3 years she's been in the business been consistent. So therefore, this is an example of like the work we've put forth through the expectations we have on where we should be, they're not in alignment. Another example was not getting the amount of listings and sales that I think we should have, but the agent was talking about the amount of effort putting forth. I mean, those two things were just so out of alignment. You can't have this huge expectation and put forth very little effort and expect those two things to ever align equally. We had another agent who has taken some of her first listings in her career, having some issues and challenges selling those listings, probably took those listings at the wrong price, under the wrong terms, with sellers that aren't very motivated. Well, that's expected to be, like your expectations are so high of like selling every listing with multiple offers because that's what you see happening. You take a listing as a brand new agent, you take your first listing, okay, a good example, high expectations, never have listed a property before. Well, of course, things probably won't go the way that you want. Here's the thing. It's the same way. Imagine a world, this would be so easy for you. Like a kid who is riding a bike for the very first time, gets on the bike, falls over. I mean, obviously that's what happens when you ride a bike. They fall over. They tell you, oh, I hate riding this bike. Riding bikes is the worst. It sucks. I never want to ride a bike again. Every single one of you would give the advice. Well, like you would say, well, dude, like it's going to take a second. It's going to take a little bit of time. You only tried it one time. Of course you're great at riding a bike. Of course you're not jumping off, and doing 360s like little Johnny down the street. Of course you can't ride with no hands. Of course you can't ride backwards. You just started. Well, I think this just hit me today after today's coaching call. It's like, well, of course you don't have a lot of listings. I mean, you've been making 5 or 10 contacts a day, and maybe that's probably inconsistent. You've been making 5 or 10 contacts a day for 2 months. Of course you don't have a lot of listings. It takes 50, 60, 80 contacts a day for 6 months consistent without ever missing a beat for you to even start to build momentum. Makes sense. Okay, aligning expectations with the work you're putting forth. You take your first listing, it's the wrong price under the wrong terms. Of course, it's not going to sell. Of course, you're going to be frustrated. Of course, you're going to feel like you're working for free. Of course, you're going to feel doubt. You've never listed a house before, right? I tell you guys this story all the time. My first 20 listings didn't sell. I took them all at the wrong price with the wrong terms with unmotivated sellers. I didn't know. It was like me riding the bike for the first time. It wasn't until I went through that did I actually learn. And the point of this just, I guess, aha moment that I had was like, what is the expectations you have for yourself? And being completely fair to yourself of the work in which you've put forth. And so, like, what is the output? How much work have you put forth? And is that in line with the expectations of where you think you should be or where you are? Because some of you, I think, are not being fair to yourself, both from the standpoint of like beating yourself up too much, where you really haven't given yourself a shot at this. And some of you are the cause of your frustration comes through not putting forth great effort and also having huge expectations of where you should be and comparing yourself to other people who've put forth the effort for years and years and years and years and years and where they're at. And so anyway, I just looked at these two things, expectations and the output of work, and really having you consider those two things and asking yourself, are those two things for myself in alignment or are they out of alignment? And I think if you're being honest, for the most part, you're going to find that those two things are out of alignment. And I think we've got to do a better job at bringing those two things, I think, closer together so that we can move forward with what it is that we want to accomplish and help our sense of doubt and help us get past frustration, because I think that's where all that stuff lives. If your expectations are way up here and your effort and your work is way down here, common sense would tell you that you are not going to achieve the goals that you've set. It's not until these things are in alignment. My expectation is to make $100,000 a year in real estate, and I'm going to do 25 contacts per day without ever missing, 5 days a week, 240 days a year. Okay, those are in alignment. I'm with you on that. But you can't make $500,000 a year as the expectation, make 5 contacts a day, and then ask yourself, gosh, I'm frustrated. What the hell am I missing? Your expectations and your work or effort are not in alignment. So just think about that. What are your expectations of where you're at today, where you think you should be, and how much effort are you putting forth, and are those things aligned?